Welcome to the season finale of Stories for Wonderful Children. This episode will be a little different, coming in 3 parts. We'll start with a short story about Diana's 4th birthday that is important for some stories in Season 2. Then, I have an interview with my now much older wonderful children about what they think about the podcast. Finally, I'll give you a sneak peek of what to expect in Season 2. Okay, on with the show.
Now, Rebecca had been a Recheetah since she was 4 years old. Before that, she had been just an ordinary little girl. But on her 4th birthday, she had had something happen. Some goblins had come to try to steal the candles off her birthday cake. And she had wanted to run into the house to tell her mommy, and she had run so fast that she had never remembered running that fast before. And she had been in the house in a blink. And then, realizing how fast she was running, she had grabbed some rope and run back outside and run around and around the goblins until they were all wrapped up in rope and couldn't move. Diana, Rebecca's little sister, was not fast as a Recheetah. But everybody in the family wondered, because she was 3 and about to turn 4, what would happen on her birthday, whether she would become a Recheetah too. Wow.
You mean a da-cheetah?
A da-cheetah? Yeah, I guess she would be a da-cheetah. But anyway, so Diana's 4th birthday came, and she held her birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, and she had invited some of her friends, and her sisters were there, and her mommy and daddy were there.
Sisters.
Yep, sisters. They were both there. And
Charlotte was there.
Charlotte was there, yeah.
And Carly Sue and Aubrey. And Aubrey.
Yes, all of them were there. And just as they lit the candles on the birthday cake, they heard this sound. And Rebecca said, "Oh no, the goblins have come to try to steal the candles on your birthday cake, Diana. Just like they did to me." And Rebecca Recheetah looked around, ready to run and confuse the goblins with how fast she could run. But she looked around, she did not see any goblins. And then Diana pointed up and she said, "Ah, there they are." And they looked up and they saw, floating across the ceiling of Chuck E. Cheese, were goblins in little tiny hot air balloons. And although Rebecca Recheetah ran as fast as she could, she ran, but she could not reach them. She tried to jump, but she could not reach them to stop them from stealing the candles on the birthday cake. Well, the goblins floated right over the top of the birthday cake, and they lowered this little grabber arm out of their hot air balloons, and the grabber arm grabbed the birthday cake and started to pull it back up into their balloon, and then it started to float away. And Diana said, "Come back here with my birthday cake." And she ran after them, but she did not run fast like a Recheetah. As the goblins started to float by the tubes in the ceiling that you could get inside, Diana jumped, and she jumped at the side of the tube, hoping that she could sort of push off and reach those goblins in the balloons. But when she jumped up to the side of the tube tower, she stuck. And she thought, and she moved her hand, and she put it down, and it stuck again. And so she tried, and she crawled right up the side of the tube tower. She could stick to things like a spider. And so she climbed up the side, right up the wall, and climbed around the outside of the tube, and she reached out and grabbed her birthday cake right back from those goblins. She said, "Rebecca!" And Rebecca zipped over, and Diana dropped the birthday cake to her safe and sound. And then Diana reached up and put her hand on the ceiling, and then her other hand on the ceiling, and then her feet on the ceiling, and she walked right across the ceiling until she caught up with those goblins in the balloons, and she said, "You leave my birthday party alone." And she stuck her hands on the ceiling, and she swung from her own hands on the ceiling, and she booted their balloons. She kicked them, and they flew right out of Chuck E. Cheese with the goblins going, "Ah!" And then Diana walked across the ceiling, and she walked right down the wall. And Rebecca Recheetah said, "Wow, Diana, you've got a great special power when you turned 4 years old, too. Now you only need one thing." And Diana said, "What's that, Becca?" And Rebecca said, "You need a cool name to go with your powers. Mine's Rebecca Recheetah. What's yours going to be?" And Diana said,
Stick-a-girl.
Stick-a-girl? That's a thought.
No.
How about Declimer?
No.
No? Okay. Well, you think about it, and if you decide, Diana thought, she said, "Well, I might think of a special name for myself, like Recheetah, but right now I just want to go blow my birthday candles out and have some birthday cake with my friends." And that is what she did. But she and her very special sister, Rebecca Recheetah, had many other adventures using their powers. And they eagerly awaited to see what would happen when their younger sister, Catherine Rose, turned 4 years old.
And what kind of powers? Diana, don't turn it off until Diana thinks of it.
She didn't have to think of a name today. She could just continue to go by Diana.
Diana, do you want to go by... I just want my name to be Diana.
That's fine.
All right. So thank you all for joining me in the magical environs of Mom's closet.
Love what you've done with the place.
These, my 3 wonderful children, the original wonderful children, have agreed to join us for a quick interview. All of you.
OGs.
All of
There
you.
are non-OGs?
All of you. Well, all the wonderful children who listen now. Everybody who listens has heard you all when you were much younger, and so I thought they might be interested to hear from you briefly. So if you want to just go around and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm 13 now.
Hi, I'm Diana. I'm now 17.
Hi, I'm Syl. If you listen to the podcast, you know me as Rebecca. I've since changed my name. And I'm 20 now.
So I'm curious, what has your all's experience been like making this podcast for the last year? You sort of all gave me permission to do this before I started in on it, but I'm sort of wondering, now that you've had to put up with me talking about it for a year and hearing stories you haven't heard for a long time, what's your experience been like?
I think, there have not really been any bad experiences, because it's not really something that affects my life all too much.
What were you anticipating? Like a really life-ruining experience out of a podcast getting made?
I was hoping not.
But, there have been several times where Dad has called us over to listen to part of a story that, where one of us has just had a moment where, we said something completely ridiculous. And it's been fun to hear, because at this moment, I don't think we've had any times where I've been in anything other than an infant crying in the background.
Yeah.
The rest of us have said some pretty incriminating things.
Right now we're up to where you're about 4 months old, I think.
Yeah.
Future employers are gonna look back at this.
My experience has mostly been, great. I've had a lot of my cousins be able to hear these stories that I heard, and so it's very nice to share that with them. And also I've really enjoyed being pulled over to hear snippets of me saying absolutely ridiculous things as a small child with my hi little voice like this.
I have also, for the record, enjoyed getting pulled over to hear ridiculous things that Diana has said. That's been my favorite part of this whole process.
Also, the parts he has to cut out where it's just Syl and I arguing for 30 seconds about something.
The fact that, don't phrase it like the parts he has to cut out.
Well,
having really heated gamer moments at ages 3 and 6.
We did.
You really did.
Yeah, there were some where
there was some back and forth.
Yeah. Some of them are entertaining. The ones that aren't entertaining and get heated, I just cut those. Nobody needs to listen to those.
Sometimes I wonder, what the audience is, thinking about when they just hear, us talking.
I wonder if any of them just find us super annoying.
I'm sure it's, a 99%.
That would be very funny.
I think the demographics of people who find us annoying are probably, like, really statistically significant.
Oh, I don't know. I think you all are the highlight of the podcast. I think you all
charming.
I think you all heckling me while I'm trying to tell a story is what makes it different and special and unique. And it's the
maybe
part
for
I
the
enjoy
adults.
listening to when I go back.
I feel like the children find us annoying because they just want to hear the
Maybe.
story.
I don't care what the children think.
So
You heard it here, folks.
if you find my children annoying, feel free to send an email to storiesforwonderfulchildren@gmail.com.
Send us some hate mail.
I'll
We'll
post
feel
it on my
famous.
Instagram and get mad clout.
I will forward it to them.
It'll be honestly very funny.
So, you all have the advantage that you've heard all the stories for 20 years, and
Sure have.
they've
Well,
just
I was
heard,
asleep for a long
well, yeah.
You sure were.
Yeah.
You really.
I fell asleep like a rock.
And so they've only heard a year or so of them. I'm wondering, do you all have a favorite story or two that you remember from the time that you've heard stories in the past?
Hands down the Sally Six Shooter stories.
There'll be a couple.
They
There'll be season 3. There'll be a couple. Years
Oh,
from
okay,
now.
sorry.
No, that's fine.
They were
There's something to look
amazing.
forward to.
I was a really big fan of the Ia and Dak stories.
Ia
and
and-
Shan and all of them. I was a big fan of those stories.
Yeah,
But-
and Dak and Shan are coming up this
Oh,
coming season, season 2.
I love those stories. And then more recently, the Leandra stories were really, really
They
good.
were.
You keep naming things that they're gonna have no clue.
Well,
That's
that's
right.
okay,
Yeah,
they don't-
Leandra wasn't recorded. So.
Yeah, Leandra wasn't recorded. Leandra is something just for...
He asked
all.
what my favorite stories were,
Yep.
and those are my answers.
For me, I don't know if we recorded any of them, but the Keira stories.
We do have some
Oh,
Kara and
yeah.
Mr. Fluffle
Mr.
stories.
Fluffle.
Yes.
Those are
I love
classic.
those stories. Those were
Yeah.
peak
Yeah.
of comedy at some points.
They're a few years off, but yeah, Mr. Fluffles is a real...
And I too also enjoyed the Leandra stories very much. We're very much teasing the audience with the wow, we love the story that you'll never get to hear.
Well,
It
Leandra's
was
just for
really,
you all.
really
But-
good.
but-
it was.
But they'll get to hear Ian
Maybe
Dak,
I'll
and
write
they'll
a
get
book
to hear
about it,
Sally
and you all
Six
can
Shooter.
hear about it that way.
Yeah, maybe if I need something to do in retirement. Maybe you can write that book.
Yeah.
Go for it. The 3 of you can collaborate.
I
or
think that
something.
would be a bestseller.
It would be such a good book.
Oh, you overestimate me, but thank you.
No, it was so good. It was.
All right. Anything else you want to tell the people who've been putting up with me and all of us collectively for a year?
I'm so sorry. I would like to issue an official apology. I've made a continuous lapse in my judgment.
I would like to say that at some point in these stories, I do get my adenoids out, and I stop sounding like this all the time. And my voice gets a little more normal.
Yep.
So, we'll get there.
I'd like to say that at some point I will make a significant appearance.
You will.
So
Instead
far,
of crying in the background.
yeah. Instead of just being that one like faint background noise of
All right. Well, thank you all for hanging out in the closet with me and chatting. I hope everybody enjoyed the interview and enjoyed meeting the OG Wonderful Children.
Oh, it's been riveting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for Season 1 of Stories for Wonderful Children. I'll be taking a break for the next couple of weeks, but will return with Season 2 on September 5th. What can you expect for Season 2? Well, for at least the first part of the year, I'll be releasing new episodes weekly on Sundays. As always, there will be a mix of self-contained single-episode stories with longer story arcs. Some of the longer multi-part stories you can expect include... Winella will return to the magical tree she planted in Season 1 in the Guardian of the Seed stories. Rebecca, Recheetah, and Diana will put Diana's newfound Stickapod powers to use, trying to foil the plans of a new frost fairy named Queen Shiver. And I'm really looking forward to introducing you to the adventures of the royal twins, Princess Ia and Prince Dak, as they discover that inheriting a kingdom from their parents means inheriting a whole lot of trouble with it. So join me on September 5th as we embark on Season 2 of Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm very grateful to everyone who has listened to the stories in Season 1, told a friend about the podcast, left a review with your podcast provider, or sent me a note to tell me that you've really enjoyed the podcast. I'd like to thank my children for allowing me to share these stories, which I created for them with all of you.
The theme music for this show was created by the talented Brandon Thompson. If you'd like to contact the show, our email is storiesforwonderfulchildren@gmail.com. Or you can get in touch through our website, storiesforwonderfulchildren.com, or Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. This is Dan Wendelin reminding you to tell someone you love a story.